day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. What do we got going on now? Oh, all sorts of stuff. Lots of independence talk going on, of course. Lots of things on the international front, and really a whole lot of talk and not a lot of action on the federal front. Got a good guest coming on in a bit here. John Bolton. He's a broadcaster. You might remember him from a number of talk radio stations he'd been on. Now he's working on YouTube Online, and he's been a fantastic voice out there. I like seeing this independent media building up and becoming the future. It really is. And John's just been doing a fantastic job. It's going to be a good time chatting with him there. So I'm going to get right into things. I want to talk about what's going on the federal front. So, I mean, while Western alienation is on the rise, no surprise there, the federal government is really not doing a damn thing to stop it. We have the new Carney administration. I mean, they can act decisively and without hesitation when they want to. Carney repealed the consumer carbon tax, did an about-face on his retaliatory tariffs against the United States in short order. I mean, they were good moves, but they also proved that even policy changes with wide economic impacts can be made quickly when the government has the will to do it. Carney even likes showing off his newfound unilateral powers through these performative signings of executive orders that don't even exist in the Canadian system. He likes to show how powerful he is as an individual leader, but he's not doing anything. I mean, if Mark Carney wanted to facilitate the development of cross-country infrastructure to deliver Canadian energy products worldwide, he'd be on it like a pit bull on a fat kid. He'd be holding press conferences on the issue and showing maps of proposed energy corridors. He'd be declaring pipelines to be in the national interest, and his government would be telling Canadians of the benefits all citizens could enjoy with the increased sales of energy products around the world. Mark Carney is doing none of these things because Mark Carney has no interest in allowing any new pipelines to be constructed in Canada. He paid lip service to the issue during the election, and now he's going to allow Canada's energy industry to continue to atrophy under a ridiculous regulatory process. The world wants Canadian oil and natural gas. Leaders from Germany and Japan, they came to Canada cap in hand, almost begging Canada to sell them petroleum products. Those leaders were told by former Prime Minister Dingbat that there's no business case to be made, and they left disappointed. Those countries went out and cut deals worth billions of dollars to purchase oil and gas from Middle Eastern sources. Qatar understands there's a business case for selling oil and gas products. Due to that, they're the richest nation on earth, while Canada has economically castrated itself. Carney plans to continue Trudeau's ideological and idiotic crusade against the Western Canadian oil and gas industry. He's maintaining the very policies imposed by Trudeau, which have stunted development of the resource, and he won't be budging on it. Carney's hinting that no businesses have been expressing interest in investing in the new Energy East project. Well, of course they haven't. All the regulatory roadblocks that killed the first Energy East project remain in place today. Why on earth would any energy company commit more funds towards a project that the government won't guarantee? And Lucy's ripped the ball away from Charlie Brown enough times on this issue. Energy companies aren't going to fall for it again. The business case for exporting more oil and gas from Canada is solid. World demand is expected to rise for fossil fuels for decades to come. And Canada has some of the most abundant deposits of them on Earth. The nation could benefit by trillions of dollars over decades through employment, income, along with taxes, royalties within reason, and such on the industry. It could support some of the most generous social program bases on the planet while drawing professionals to immigrate from overseas to contribute to the economy through associated industries. We can and we should have all that, but Mark Carney doesn't want us to. Carney's lieutenant, Stephen Guilbeault, has already been telling Canadians we don't need any more pipelines. And I don't recall Carney correcting him on that. Guilbeault is an environmental extremist with a tenuous grasp on reality. Carney is no less extreme with his net zero ideology, but he's taking a more subtle and dangerous approach than Guilbeault in shutting in the resources. Carney wants to let Canada's natural resources die on the vine rather than allow for increased development and exportation of them. While Carney loves wrapping himself in the Canadian flag and is trying to portray himself as a hero who will protect Canada from the dastardly USA, yet he refuses to address Canada's largest vulnerability to the American economic bullying. In being virtually the sole customer for Canada's oil and gas exports, the USA has enjoyed discounted Canadian products for decades. There's some serious financial heavy hitters with a strong interest in maintaining Canada's energy status quo. One has to wonder how many of those interests have Carney's ear or Carney's investments. The only way to regain investor confidence in Canada's oil and gas industry would have been to hit the ground running and declare utility corridors to be in the national interest. Carney would have to say that pipelines must be constructed. Instead, he's saying they might get constructed which is another way of saying they'll never be constructed. In offering mealy-mouthed commitments to energy infrastructure while offering Quebec a veto on the matter and keeping the No More Pipelines bill in force, Mark Carney is signaling he wants to phase out Canada's oil and gas industry. That leaves only one tool left in the West's toolbox in order to achieve its potential in full for prosperity and stability, and that's with full and complete provincial independence. All right, well, that's what's got me worked up today. Let's turn and check in with Jen Hodgson and see news updates and what's going on outside in the world. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Hey, Cory, I'm doing good, thanks.
Good. You're stuck here filling Dave's shoes. I mean, that's a big task. He's over in Israel, and
I'm no Dave Naylor, but I'll do what I can to step into his shoes.
Certain you'll do fantastic. So, the news stories are still coming up. I see you're writing as prolifically as always. So what's topping the list today out there in the big bad world?
Right. So today I'm working through the pandemic agreement by the World Health Organization that Canada is a part of. So I'm working my way through this dense text right now. There have been several versions, and what we're trying to get to the bottom of is just how much control member countries like Canada are allocating to the WHO. Now, it seems like the updated versions of the treaty don't have that more authoritarian language. So it seems like they might have backtracked slightly on that. So stay tuned on our website, and we'll let you know just what to expect from that treaty. If there is another pandemic, member countries, I think there's something like 192 countries are signing on to that, and they will be compelled then to follow certain pandemic related protocols such as sharing data, surveillance. There's a one planet or one earth agreement, which is basically equalizing humans, animals, and the planet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's an interesting perspective.
I really look forward to them sharing my personal medical data with international organizations such as the WHO. And sharing those personal details. What a wonderful notion this is.
A lot to look forward to with that, for sure.
Look forward to seeing what you can dig out of that.
Definitely. So your viewers can check back on our website to find out just exactly what is going to be part of that treaty by the end of the day. Next up, so we have some Freedom Convoy stuff, and there's been a few minor successes this week. Chris Barber is in court today. He is filing an application for a stay hearing, which means that all of his charges will be dropped should he be successful. We should find out by Friday, but he's facing 2 years in jail and the seizure of his truck that he uses for his livelihood, of course. Chris Oldcorn in Saskatchewan, he's looking into MAID, medical assistance in dying for kids and people with mental health disorders. So the Evangelical Church of Canada released pamphlets, educational pamphlets for people to be aware of what Dying with Dignity, for example, which is probably the most prominent organization that advocates for MAID, is putting forward about allowing kids and even kids with special disabilities to qualify for this state-assisted suicide.
So, yeah, as a kid, you can't vote, you can't drink, you can't legally smoke a cigarette, but you can cut off your reproductive organs or even choose death. Man, we're really going on a great road down Canada.
Right. We have this mature minor loophole in Canada. Last year, I did an in-depth story on it about the surgeries for kids that are confused about their gender and the different avenues that they have to bypass their parents' consent by claiming independence from their parents, essentially, to go forward with these procedures. So we'll hear more from Chris Oldcorn about what exactly is available to young people, even young people with disabilities that seek euthanasia.
It's pretty distressing.
It is. And, it's a tough week for kids, actually, because we have a study about Canadian children who live in food scarcity. And believe it or not, 40% of kids in Newfoundland, the study found, are not having enough food every day. And we see that trend rising all across the country. We heard in our news meeting this morning that the food bank visits across Canada are up 90%. So it's a tough time out there, especially for the kids.
Yeah, for Canadians in general. I mean, this economic boon under the elbows up crowd had better hurry up as people are getting hungry. All right. Well, is that what you've got for today?
Well, unless if you'd like to hear about the ostriches, which are always a favorite story for our viewers.
On the ostriches. People are concerned about that, actually.
Yeah.
We've got people watching that as it unfolds. What's going on? We got the federal government is obsessed with killing birds.
They are, yeah, 400 of them to be exact. So the Federal Food Inspection Agency continues on with its mission to cull 400 ostriches from a farm in BC, despite legal appeals and maybe I shouldn't say mass protests. It's not like the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa or anything. Give it time,
the ostrich convoy is forming.
But people are camping out, people are writing letters, and it's all over social media too. So people are really concerned about this because these are healthy ostriches that are not even used for food consumption. And the federal agency is trying to have them culled because last year, a couple of their birds were found with avian flu, and those birds are deceased. And the farm owners say that the other birds have herd immunity, and none of them have tested positive, yet this cull remains in place. They want to really go after these birds.
Well, they really want the bird flu to turn into the next big pandemic. They've been trying to make that work for years since monkeypox failed. But
yeah, and you make a connection there, Cory, because in the pandemic treaty I've already read through today is that specifically cases like this, where there could be the viruses found in animals, this is where the surveillance factor comes in. So this data needs to be shared, and then it needs to follow the WHO defined criteria for responding to it.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, as it builds up, they're not going to be able to get in and cull those birds easily. So, bizarre times anyways. We'll keep,
that's right.
Let you get back there to keep digging into those WHO documents and hopefully come up with a good news story.
Yeah, maybe next week, Cory.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Jen, and I'll let you back. I know Dave's left with you a massive workload while he's lounging out in Israel right now.
Yeah, he has. He's dropped it right on me, and Sean's away today too. So, yeah.
Well, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Cory.
After the show. All right. That is Jen Hodgson, as you see, very busy covering a lot of very important stories, and these are ones you don't hear about in legacy media that often. That's where I nag you. The reason we can do this, the reason we're independent, is because you guys have subscribed. So just like a newspaper subscription, guys, $10 a month, $100 for a year. Get past the paywall. Support Jen, support Dave, support me, and the rest of us in here to keep producing this content and getting it out to you. This is the future of media. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, come on, get on there, guys. It's not that much. So, I see there's so many of these issues. Government control. Could you imagine an unrestrained world with ostriches, running loose, untested, and people selling eggs? We had an egg farmer arrested in Alberta recently. I mean, we see dairy farmers who get charged for, not charged. If they dare, though, to sell outside of a quota, well, then they will be charged. Bizarre world we're in. And at the same time, when all of this regulation is going on, we have people in Newfoundland going to food banks. I wonder if there might just be a little bit of a connection in over-regulating our agricultural industry while we can't even afford to buy our own bloody agricultural products. What a mess. And then, yes, MAID, it's a whole separate discussion. I've had people on about it. And that's another case of government control on a policy that maybe actually had a little bit of merit, but they take it and just blow it way beyond reality and common sense. I mean, if somebody's truly terminal, suffering, and really wants to kind of end, early with a decision on that, and they're of sound mind, I'm not averse to having the means provided for somebody in that circumstance. But now when they've gone nuts with it, this is way beyond what Sue Rodriguez was trying to attain. This is way beyond what anybody with common sense would think. When you're getting to children, people with mental health disorders, and people with non-terminal illnesses, and it sounds like it's not just being offered, it's being encouraged, and we should be very worried about that. All right, well, let's get on to, I'm looking forward to this, John Bolton. Speaking of the future of media, and for I know he's been across the country, and Calgary talk radio listeners would probably remember that voice once he pops on. He was on for a number of times filling in, and now he's been on YouTube and excellently outspoken and covering the issues, and just happy to have him on to discuss things in general and the new media. So thanks for joining us today, John.
Well, thank you. You know, I've been in broadcasting. I'm in my 60s now, and being new media after being in broadcasting for 35 years is really quite something, Cory.
Yeah, well, you're
Can you hear me
energetic.
okay?
I mean, yeah. So some people would have perhaps taken off and retired or changed careers, but you've just embraced the new media, and you're doing great with it so far. Sounds
Well,
like
thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for having me on here today. And you know, what's amazing? Got a bit of a delay, I think. Do we?
It sounds like we got a bit of a delay, but you're still coming. I'll just let you speak for a bit and carry on, and perhaps it'll catch up.
Can you hear me okay, Cory?
You're coming in. We just got a bit of a delay.
Okay. No, what I think's amazing is that. Okay, got you. What I think's amazing is that if I were in broadcasting today, I certainly wouldn't do local radio. I wouldn't be on a radio station, a television station. This is what I'd be you. I think some of the young people who are doing sort of basically podcasts on a daily basis, many times a day, are doing great work and probably making a heck of a lot more money doing broadcasting. And I didn't make a lot of money over the years doing it. No pension, none of that. I had to work under the umbrella of a con. It's really amazing where we are right now. And after 60 years of my life, here I am doing YouTube, which is pretty amazing. And I enjoy doing it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and you get up at a god awful early hour to get those videos out there, which I appreciate. So it's nice to start the morning and I catch what you've gone on about and a lot of federal issues. You hit again on the carbon tax. You know, we can't. And I appreciate that. Like, we can't let the government off the hook with this. As you said, that now they're doing the about face and changing their tune on the carbon tax. Well, where is our money? You know, what happened with it? Can you kind of expand on what you had to say with that?
Well, what I said today was, we heard yesterday that it's now been upset at Pierre Poilievre for not taking credit over the carbon tax disappearing as Mark Carney wrote it away, because if he hadn't been yelling "I'll axe the tax" for 2 years, that would still probably be in place today. But I think that with the carbon taxes, we've been taken advantage of for so long. And today I said, where's my money? I'd like to get it back. I thought Pierre Poilievre during the campaign should have given everybody a carbon tax rebate to kind of refund some of the money that's been stolen from us over the years, which accomplished absolutely nothing, Cory. This did nothing for the environment. Stephen Harper said that carbon taxes are not about lowering emissions. They're about raising revenues. And that's what the Liberal government did for years, 6 years in a row, every April 1st. And I was just saying, I want to speak out for everybody. Give me my money back. Give it back.
Well, it's a valid point that not enough people are pointing out as well. I mean, if you do believe that global warming, climate change, all those bad things are the biggest issue facing us today, and it's going to cost the future for the next generations, well, you should have been asking how well the bloody carbon tax is working, and it hasn't done a darn thing. The temperatures haven't changed. Weather patterns haven't changed. It was truly a completely useless policy. Maybe we should be applying that critique, though, now, if we missed it on the consumer one, onto the commercial, the industrial carbon tax, because it's not gone. It's just moved.
It has. And I mentioned this morning that, we're going to get basically two more carbon taxes, the industrial carbon tax, as you mentioned, and the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which if things coming into the country don't live up to Mark Carney's rules when it comes to emissions, then they're going to put a tariff on it, which is going to cost Canadians more money. So if the money from the carbon tax, the carbon tax we've been paying every time we put gas in our car or pay to keep us from freezing to death in the wintertime, if that raised inflation, what are these two other taxes that are coming going to do to inflation here in Canada?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a delay. It's a little frustrating. It's the problem with the new media and going live. We still get some hiccups now and then. Maybe I'll turn a little bit, though. You've been also very outspoken, as if on looking at the Western independence issue. I mean, the frustration we've had, nothing's changing on the federal front. All we changed was the prime minister. He's put the same gang of clowns back in the cabinet. He hasn't repealed any significant policies that will impact the West. but the movement is still, I guess, having trouble getting out of the starting gates. What are your thoughts on where the independence movement's sitting right now in the West, even though it's got strong support building?
Well, I did a video. I've done a couple of videos, and I don't want to go over the same ground, Cory. But my concern is that there's really no leadership here. There's really no plan. There's really no communications. We've got a number of people who say they speak on behalf of the independence movement here in Alberta. I think of Jeff Rath, who I admire greatly. I think he's got a big voice, but I don't think he's the voice of the independence movement. You've got Cam Davies, who I question what his motivation is. He's got an axe to grind with the UCP. He's got an axe to grind, I think, with Danielle Smith. The Republican Party of Alberta, an unfortunate name for a party, considering what's been going on down south of the border. And then you've got something like Jeevan Mangat from the Wild Rose Independence Party. And I was looking for some unity from these groups and somebody to come out to lead this movement. And nobody does. We need somebody to do that. And I know people think that there's lots of time here, but I don't believe that. I think we need to get our ducks in a row now. We need a leader. We need a cohesive message for this, or we're going to fail when it comes to the independence movement here. And that's my real concern. In fact, this brings me back to 2019. I initially went out to an independence meeting in North Calgary. There were about 1,000 people in an auditorium in North Calgary. And I think it was the Wexit Party at that time, if I remember correctly. And after that, I started receiving email from two different groups who are at each other's throats. And I think there are lawsuits involved here. And I started to kind of move myself away from the movement because there was all this infighting. And I think all of these groups need to bury the hatchet, get together. We've got a common cause here. It's for independence in Alberta, and we have to have a cohesive voice. We have to have a leader. And I haven't seen that person come forward. That's my real concern here.
Yeah, and I mean, a challenge when you get multiple groups. I mean, I've kind of spoke to an advantage of that in that it allows things not to be torn down by perhaps one group or another group, but at the same time, getting a consistent messaging is difficult. I mean, one group might be saying one thing, the next is saying another, and even if they aren't fighting with each other, it's giving your average undecided voter who's considering independence mixed messaging. And if you feel mixed messaging on a decision as big as independence, you're probably not going to make the mark on that yes box. So we need one person in the front, at least to speak for the movement. But I mean, they don't pop out of the ground like daisies. We don't really see anybody standing out to take that role yet.
I've been thinking about that. My wife sent me an email last night. Do a series of videos on who you might think would stand out in this position. I really don't know who that person is right now. I was watching about a week or so ago, Candace Malcolm on Juno News was talking with Preston Manning, and Preston Manning back in 87, his message was the West wants in. He wrote an article, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, slightly before the election started. And I think he realizes the West wants out. He said if the Liberals win, there's going to be a growing independence movement here in Alberta. And I look at somebody like him, he's certainly, no disrespect to Mr. Manning, who I have a lot of respect for. He's certainly not of the age to lead a movement like this. I don't know whether he would, but we need a face like that. And I've brought it up a number of times on my channel that going back to 95, I went to Montreal. I was at the Unity rally. I wouldn't do it today. I wouldn't care if Quebec left. I wanted Canada to stay together back then when I went to Montreal. But you look at the people who were leading the movement there. Jacques Parizeau, the head of the Parti Québécois, the premier of the province, Lucien Bouchard, who was the official opposition in the House of Commons with the Bloc. They had the aura of René Lévesque hanging over that movement as well, who lost a vote back in 1980 for this. These guys were huge names, still huge names in Canadian politics. It would be like having Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre leading the independence movement in Alberta right now. And we've got nobody like that right now. And I see the other side kind of lining up people. Naheed Nenchi's waiting for Cam Davies to split the vote on the right so he can move in as the premier of this province. Independence will be dead if that happens. You've got Jason Kenney, former premier of the province, who's going out against the independence movement. You're going, politics made strange bedfellows, and you're going to see the anti-independence people really get together, and you're seeing nothing on the independent side. And that's what I really want to see happen, Cory. I really do.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, you see a lot more unified movement towards a no. It doesn't take quite the organization that's required to turn the vote into a yes. I mean, we're not ready to get off yet. We're looking at nearly a year, hopefully with some of the, the time's going to pass fast. And as people are saying, the surge of support is stronger than we've ever seen, but we're still a good distance from a clear 50 some percent in a vote. I can only hope maybe some meetings, rallies. I mean, those things do help get people together, but how can somebody surface out of that to start speaking for the movement? Some things are in the works. Maybe we'll get there soon, hopefully.
Well, I hope so. And I watched your video yesterday and you talked about the mixed messaging. And, when we're out. That's what we have to let people know. We're leaving Canada and just doing, but they're tweeting things out that they're having to take back online. That messaging gets passed along and people don't hear the actual message. I would suggest a little plug for you, Cory, but people go to your personal website or your personal YouTube channel and follow along with you, because you wrote the book on this, for goodness sakes. And I think we should follow along and use that as our guidebook for the movement for separatism and the independence movement here in Alberta.
Well, I appreciate the plug. Yeah, and I'll keep doing those videos. At least, like I said, as I say in a lot of them, I just want to share the mistakes I made so we can quit repeating them and get on with some new mistakes. And, eventually we'll run out of mistakes. So, before I let you go, then, where can people find you? Because your voice has been great. And I'm looking forward, as I said, I love seeing independent media developing and getting out there. And your show is a great watch. So I want more people to tune into that in the mornings and, just start off the day right.
Well, thank you. If you search for John Bolton, you're going to come up with 5 billion videos of the former UN ambassador to the for the United States. That John Bolton, the nemesis of Donald Trump. So look for John Bolton AB, and you'll find my channel. It's been a great success. Back in early December, I had 400 subscribers. I think I'm reaching 32,000 now. I appreciate everybody for coming there. They come to see me in the morning with my big blue mug. I was at the Independence Rally May 3rd. I was the MC there, and I brought my big blue mug. Dozens of people came up to see me. I've got more recognition doing those morning videos than I did in 35 years of broadcasting on the radio. So it has been great fun. I appreciate you having me on today, Cory. I really do. Thank you so much.
Well, it was great, John, and I look forward to watching more of your videos as you produce them. And, we'll talk again soon, I'm sure. We got an exciting year ahead of us, if nothing else.
I think we can pull it across the line, Cory. I really do. Let's all work together. I think that's the number one message that needs to be passed along to everybody. All the people who are speaking out right now, get together, and I think we can do it. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Thanks again.
Great, thanks. So that was John Bolton AB. If you look that up, you'll find him on YouTube. He's on X as well. Actually, I should have dug that up there. But the best stuff is, as you could tell with John speaking, the broadcasts don't come out with some of the lag that we had going on today with this show necessarily. But no, they're nice and crystal clear when you get John's show in the mornings. And that's how we bypass legacy media. As he was pointing out, there's going to be, if we're talking about just the independence movement, there's going to be opposition coming from all sorts of directions. They're rubbing their hands together. It's a lot easier to tear something apart that's when it's on its way up than to actually get something together and growing and moving on its way up. And legacy media is all in with the Federalists. I mean, most of legacy media takes federal subsidies. So they do not want to see things change, and they are not going to do us any favors. But you know what? We don't need them anymore. You don't need the talk radio anymore. You don't need the conventional television anymore. The future is on social media, and John's doing it through YouTube. This show's broadcast through YouTube, Rumble, X, LinkedIn, all those places we stream out to. And that's how we can get our information unfiltered and get some of these things done. I mean, meanwhile, getting back to media, I should point out, as I mentioned earlier, Dave Naylor is in Israel right now. And he's covering some of the things. He's been putting out live video clips that you can find on X and on the Western Standard site from some of the horrible areas of where the slaughter's been going on, where they came in and murdered families and kibbutzes and at a music festival. I mean, we get people on the ground and get out there and get you that news and information. And it's the, I don't know how else to put it. And, you know, when you see things like this, what Dave's doing, it again reminds you don't need the old form of media to get to those things. Further with that, I'm looking at the stuff coming out across Canada. In Toronto, the Hamas supporters are just getting totally out of control. They are attacking Jewish-owned businesses. You know, the world has seen this before. And they're doing almost the game of, you know, getting as close into somebody's face. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you, while intimidating, while targeting. So they were smoke bombing people on a patio. You know, there are people committing the crime in the eyes of these terrorist supporting scumbags. And that's what they are, scumbags. Just want to have a coffee, but they're at a Jewish-owned cafe, and suddenly these losers, these masked scumbags, are coming and getting in their face and intimidating them and lighting smoke bombs in their face. And the police don't do a damn thing. Why? Because Mayor Chow is a Hamas supporter. That's the only explanation any longer. The Toronto police and the weakness, the limp-wristed approach, the panty waists, going up and bringing coffee and donuts to terrorist supporters in our streets while they target and intimidate an identifiable group. If it had been anything else, I mean, just imagine if there were Klansmen masked going into a black district weekend by weekend by weekend and marching and intimidating the black people in front of their houses. How quickly would the authorities move on that? And they should. But, oh, this is Jewish communities, so we just carry on. It's beyond the pale. But again, it's showing how broken Canada is. You want to know one of the first international accolades that Prime Minister Carney managed to get was from Hamas. For the second time now, Canada has been thanked by Hamas for its stances on the slaughter of Israeli people by that gross terrorist organization. This country is broken. And so that's part of why, I want absolutely nothing to do with Toronto, with Canada, with what's left of it. And look what we got to look forward to, right? We still have no budget. There's no budget yet. There's not going to be a budget this year. He hasn't even scheduled it for next year. Really? We don't need to operate with a budget. The massive amount of spending that Carney has promised now, and no budget to tell us how that's going to work. I mean, we are looking at, and we're getting reports, Canada's moving into recession. They're looking at possibly hundreds of thousands of jobs being lost soon, and we can't even get a budget out of the federal government. You know, speaking of the economics of independence, and that's one of the videos I got coming up in a little while. But I mean, because people deride Alberta and Saskatchewan, say you guys are only economically based on why you want independence. Well, it's not just that, actually. It's freedom-based as well. Jen mentioned Barber, who's a part of the longest mischief trial in the world's history, is still going on because of his participation in the convoy. We haven't changed anything. What measures have come in to keep the government from imposing the Emergencies Act against people who oppose the government in the future? They haven't. So no, there's more to it than just the economy. But the economy is a big one. When you can't put food on the table and you can't pay your mortgage or rent, when you actually aren't nourishing your children properly, the ties that bind to a broken system of a federation are going to weaken really fast. And things are going to get worse fast. So Alberta, Saskatchewan, we have the means to be, again, one of the most prosperous free countries in the world, and we will. And we can base a movement on the economics of it, and not just the cultural aspect alone. Culture is great. Language is great. It separates things. But again, when you can't pay the bills, you reevaluate a lot of things. We can't save Canada. We can't. It's beyond repair in a lot of ways. But we can save the West. Let's look at one of the other things. I mean, what's gone on? Canada Post. Let's pivot a little here to our unions, right? Canada Post going on strike again. They just went on strike in December. Canada Post had lost $3 billion up to that point. They were losing $400 million a quarter for years and years. Billions they're losing. It's an obsolete service. They used to deliver 5 billion letter mails a year. Now it's 2 billion letter mail a year, but we still have as many postal employees as we ever had. Justin Trudeau, one of his dumber promises was to protect home delivery for mail. There's still a third of Canada's mail is delivered direct to the house 5 days a week. How much junk mail do you need? How many Canadian Tire flyers do you need? And I tell you what, being a postie is a good gig. You make a decent income for a completely unskilled job. And let's not pretend it's a skilled job. If you can walk and you can read, you can be a postie. It's got a good pension, great overtime benefits, the whole works. And they're going on strike. It's not enough. They want more. They want job protections. That's enough. That's enough. Now, will Carney show the courage to do what has to be done? I doubt it, because he hasn't shown any yet. What has to be done? Canada Post has got to be cut down to about a 20% of what it is. We don't need home delivery 5 days a week. 1 or 2 at best. We don't need home delivery at all, actually. We need it to just centralized mailboxes. I mean, we can lay off the vast majority of those guys. We don't need them. We have email. We have direct deposit. We have electronic billing. We just don't need it anymore. And for those clowns to go on strike yet again? No, this is the opportunity. This is the time when the federal government should say, that's it, you're done, you're out. We're cutting it down. But will they? And there's other people saying, well, it's a crown corporation. You know, don't worry, it doesn't cost taxpayers. That's the line they tried to use last fall when these entitled postal monkeys went on strike. And no, because we ended up bailing them out for over $1 billion. They're losing billions. Now the taxpayers are directly paying for Canada Post. It's much like CBC. It's something that most of us don't use anymore, but we're still paying the full price for. And it's got to stop. How many more billions can we afford to pour into a service we don't need? But the federal government might keep going. Let's talk, further on stupid unions. I mean, they always offer a lot of fodder for us. Unifor, Canada's biggest private sector union, apparently. That's the union that actually is a lot of journalists are members of. And what they are demanding is that Mark Carney crack down on businesses that are trying to leave Canada. Yeah. You understand what kind of scary talk that is? Crack down on businesses leaving Canada. What are you talking about? You're going to steal their assets and not let them move them? You're going to seize them? Are you going to force them to stay in business? Put a gun to their head, say, you must operate in this country? We'll charge you if you don't. For people who haven't read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, that's just the sort of thing they pulled in that book. People said it was fantasy. Apparently not. Socialism, which is really the kiss and cousin of communism, always fails. Always. There's a 100% failure record of failure. They suck. It stinks. It doesn't work. It's an ideal and it's dumb. But we keep trying. We keep trying. Oh, it'll work this time. No, it won't. One of the best indicators of why socialism always fails is because the country that imposes it always suddenly has to try and stop the flight of professionals and people of ambition from their jurisdiction. Because they run for it. They vote with their feet. They get the hell out of there. When you think the Soviet Union, the Iron Curtain, North Korea, Cuba, you didn't see the United States putting up walls to keep people from fleeing the USA, or European capitalist countries didn't have to do that. Sorry, I'm going to sidetrack for a second, though. I see somebody who commenting. Fair enough. Jacqueline Littler. I get sidetracked with comments, but this one's important. Sorry, Cory, this senior gets my bills in the mail, and I don't do anything online regarding money. Well, I'm sorry, Jacqueline, but that's a you problem. We got to get with the future. If you want nothing but paper stuff delivered to your house, by all means, but you can friggin' pay for it. I'm not going to. We don't have the milkman coming to bring you milk every week either anymore. And if you want that, I'm sure you could find a service and pay for it. But it's done. It's over. It's obsolete. If you refuse to change to digital forms of money and communications, that's your problem. Don't make me pay for it. I understand it's harder to change for some things as we get older, but we have to adapt as they go, guys. So, I'm sorry, you've got to start adjusting, or we start charging accordingly. So those bills you get in the mail can now charge you $5 a bill for the mailing because you don't need it. You could get it for nothing electronically. If you want to write a check and put it in the post, then you should be charged for all of that paperwork and grief for it. Or you can adapt and do it electronically and not pay. So the choice is still yours, but we can't maintain an obsolete system because you don't want to change. We can. I check the mail maybe once a week, and mostly it's junk. Most of that reason for that, though, is because I'm lucky. Jane spoils me. She's a bookkeeper. She's digitized a lot of what we do, but we just don't need this any longer, and we have to adapt and change with it. All right. But I had to sidetrack on that one because I heard a similar case on X with somebody else. A guy was saying, I have lupus and I can't even get to the end of my driveway. And you're saying you're going to take away my home mail delivery service. Oh, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Mr. Lupus. Because whilst you have the energy to whine on X, and I do feel for you with having a condition that limits your mobility, if indeed that's the case. I mean, people can say anything on social media, but if you got limited mobility, fair enough. But if you can't even get to the end of your driveway, well, how are you getting your food? How are you getting your clothing? How are you getting to regular doctor's visits? Something's helping you. Somebody's helping you. Well, they can also check your mail once a week. We can't maintain a mail service that's losing billions of dollars because Mr. Lupus can't get to the end of his driveway. We need supports for people who have mobility challenges. That's fine and that's fair. But we got to get serious about the degree of infrastructure we want to maintain for those exceptional cases. And that's what people will keep doing. They'll keep pulling out the exceptions. There's this person and that person and this person and that person that relies on Canada Post. Well, yes, but they're the minority. The vast majority don't. It's like the people also saying, let's preserve the CBC because it's one of the only ones that broadcasts radio up in the Arctic. I spent 4 years in the Arctic. And most of the houses when I was working up there 12 years ago already had satellite dishes on all their roofs. Now they all have Starlink. They don't need an AM radio station broadcasting Tradio to them any longer. They still, one of the best things I saw was a young girl with 15, 16 years old, and it was at the Muskrat Jamboree in Inuvik. And she got on, she was wearing traditional wear for one of the functions of the festival. It was really cool, sort of Inuvialuit traditional wear. But then she put her earbuds into her ears and put her snowmobile helmet on and jumped on the snowmobile and went home. We can maintain some traditions, but you also modernize as you move ahead with those things. The world changes, and it's incumbent on us to change a little bit with it. And it gets harder and harder to change as we move ahead in age. I understand that. I had to help my parents program their VCR, and now I got to call my kid to help me with an app that I can't figure out on my damn phone. But it's still on us. We can't, for the same reason with VCRs. I don't like streaming. I don't like Netflix. Damn it, the government should pay for Blockbuster so I can still rent videos. That's kind of the logic people have when you're talking about preserving a postal system that we just don't need anymore. We'll always have some degree of it, but we can cut this down to a tiny fraction of what it is. We got to think harder, think ahead. As I was saying, we're looking at a possible recession coming up. We got a government that's over $1 trillion in debt now, and we want to keep pumping billions into a postal service we don't need. We got to prioritize, folks. We got some things to think about. Meanwhile, again, getting back to where I sidetracked myself with my Showtime ADHD going on there, ADHD. Unifor, socialists talking about banning people. If we've got capital flight, if we've got professionals leaving this country, we should be looking at why the hell they're running rather than trying to find ways to squeeze them back into the toothpaste tube. Because it doesn't work. The Soviets couldn't keep the skilled people. As I was saying, the states didn't have to stop people from fleeing their country because they didn't want to flee. What happened? No, Cuba, they're getting on rickety rafts going through shark-infested waters to try and get out of there. The pattern is the same every time. People escape the socialist countries. They come to the capitalist countries. If we have companies and people trying to escape Canada, it's a pretty clear indicator we've gone way too far over to the other side of socialism. And we got to correct it fast. If you want to see one of my videos on YouTube, just for a self-plug, I made it years ago when I was working in Steubenville, Ohio. It's a town that was in the Rust Belt. And, it's just near West Virginia, Ohio, across the river from there. And it had been in decline. It used to have hundreds of thousands of people. It was a steel town, and it was down to like a 25% of what it used to be. There's still Art Deco, beautiful buildings downtown, but they're all totally empty. The problem, too, when all the skilled and ambitious people leave your jurisdiction, the people left behind are usually pretty bloody rough. And then it becomes a cycle of despair. It just gets worse and worse, and you can't break yourself out of that poverty anymore. The irony of it was I was trying to hire labor there, and it was nearly impossible because they were nothing but welfare dependents and addicted people left. And it was really bad. Either way, guys, Canada's on a scary and ugly trajectory, and we've really got to reevaluate our course. We can't fix this country. We can fix part of it. A lot of modern things, modern communications, modern mail, and thank you guys for tuning in on these modern broadcasts. You know, it is the future. So social media. Be sure to check out westernstandard.news, guys. Take out a subscription. It's how we keep rolling. You don't even have to mail anything to us. You can pay online. I appreciate you tuning in today. The pipeline will be on tonight. We'll be breaking down a few more issues, and just keep subscribing, liking, and sharing all those Western Standard channels. The content is increasing all the time. So thank you, and I will see you on the next one.